Vladimir Putin's original plan for Ukraine has failed. Well, this is the simple, hard truth. What was meant to be a swift and decisive military operation has turned into a long, costly, devastating war of attrition. The Kremlin's grand design, built on miscalculations about Ukraine, about the West, and about Russia's own capabilities, has collapsed. The evidence is overwhelming. A strategy that chews through resources and people for ever smaller gains. The path forward is filled with difficult choices. None lead back to the victory imagined in February 2022. The initial invasion plan was a textbook example of strategic hubris. It presumed Ukraine was not a real state and yearned for reunion. The operation would be swift, surgical, and overwhelming. Elite airborne units would seize key airfields, like Hostomel. Armored columns would pour in, leaders would flee or be captured, then a puppet regime installed. It failed spectacularly in the first 72 hours. Ukraine fought ferociously. Citizens resisted. The VDV were mauled. A miles-long convoy became a sitting duck, stalled by logistics and relentless attacks. Kremlin intelligence was wrong. With Blitzkrieg dead, Moscow embraced attrition, mass and brutality over speed. Focus shifted from Kyiv to Donbass, artillery to pulverize positions, level cities, then advance meter by meter. A return to Soviet-style grinding warfare. The switch admitted initial goals were unachievable. Partial mobilization, then deeper mobilization of population and economy. A fight measured in years and in hundreds of thousands of lives. By late 2025, gains slowed to a crawl as the human toll mounted. The economy shows strain from sanctions and the direct costs of war. This is not a plan for victory. It's a wager on survival with worsening odds. Since 2024, Russia's war has yielded diminishing returns. After initial gains and retreats, fronts stabilized. Offensives now win tiny pockets at enormous cost. Costly pushes eventually captured places. After months of assaults, the summer offensive hoped to break through before winter and largely fizzled. Open source analysis shows losses outpacing replacement capacity. Gains measured in single-digit kilometers, casualties measured in the hundreds per kilometer. Russian narratives of steady advance clash with the actual maps. Slowing advances are not a pause. They are the new normal of a failed strategy. The human cost for Russia is catastrophic. While Moscow hides figures, independent estimates paint a grim picture. Hundreds of thousands killed or wounded, each a life, a family. From remote Siberia to Moscow's suburbs, grief spreads. Unpopular mobilization drove stealth methods, big bounties, prisons, pressured migrants. Professionals gave way to poorly trained mobilized men, convicts, and mercenaries. So-called meat assaults reflect collapsing skills, discipline, and morale. Losses in prime years deepen demographic holes and strain social systems. The state can suppress dissent, but not the empty chairs at family tables. This war has never been confined to the battlefield. Moscow blended conventional force with cyber, disinformation, and coercion. Hackers hit ministries, banks, grids, and networks to sow panic. Allies were targeted for secrets and disruption. Ukraine, backed by partners, built robust defenses. The feared cyber knockout never materialized. Long-range drones and missiles aimed to terrorize and cripple the economy. Provocations near NATO sought to deter aid, often stiffening resolve instead. Hybrid tactics reveal willingness, but also limits, when battlefield victory is absent. Diplomacy persists in fits and starts, but the table is empty. Russia demands territorial surrender and curbs on alliances, impossible for Kyiv. Early talks explored neutrality and guarantees, then collapsed. Revelations of atrocities made concessions politically impossible. Moscow repeats conditions, recognize annexations, still a non-starter. Kyiv calls for full withdrawal, including Crimea, flatly rejected by Russia. Mediators cannot bridge the core gap. Until battlefield realities shift dramatically, Diplomacy remains dim. Peace comes when costs exceed perceived benefits for at least one side. Sanctions, strikes, and a strained home front. The West imposed sweeping sanctions, financial cutoffs, tech choke points, energy curbs. Ukrainian strikes on refineries cut gasoline and diesel output. Shortages spread, prices climbed, impacting civilians and the military. A war footing buoyed defense jobs, but starved health, education, and investment. Money printing plus scarce goods drives inflation. Household reality is tightening despite state TV claims. The promise of stability for freedom is fraying, a slow-acting poison. It will not collapse the regime overnight, but it erodes options and foundations. Facing isolation, Russia leans on a few external partners. They provide crucial economic, military, and diplomatic support. China is the key backstop, buying energy and supplying dual-use goods. Critical components help bypass sanctions and sustain production. North Korean shells and missiles, Iranian drones feed the front. Moscow trades cash, tech, and cover for supply. India buys discounted crude, a commercial outlet, not an alliance. Partners avoid red lines. Quality varies. Western tech and markets remain irreplaceable. These lifelines mitigate pain but cannot restore what was lost. Cracks in the Kremlin. A brittle system revolves around one man. No clear succession, instability risk by design. War strain and future uncertainty heighten elite jockeying. A health crisis or major defeat could break the balance. Sanctions hurt elites even as fear keeps them loyal. Casualties, hardship, and war weariness erode morale. Open protest is crushed, but discontent seeps through. Rhetorical escalation sustains control, but blocks compromise. With his legacy staked on victory, defeat threatens his rule and perpetuates the war. Putin's grand strategy has failed. Years of war have beggared Russia and isolated it. 2025 confirms a war of attrition. Minimal gains, monumental losses. Human, economic, and political strains are deepening. Options narrow, no easy way out. Deeper escalation, even nuclear threats, risks a wider, ruinous war. Negotiated relief from weakness means admitting failure and freezing lines, politically perilous. Best, frozen conflict. Most likely, grinding attrition. Worst, Ukrainian breakthrough triggering crisis in Moscow. The dream of a swift victory is gone, replaced by a struggle for survival. For deeper analysis on geopolitics, battlefield dynamics, and 2026 scenarios, subscribe to Military Politics.